Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Not Your Average Josh back here for another movie review. And first off, I just want to say Happy New Year to all the people out there who are watching this. Hadn't made a video yet since the new year. I just wanted to go ahead and say that for anybody who is a loyal Not Your Average Josh viewer at this point. Hopefully this will be a great year, particularly, I guess, for this channel. Continuing just kind of grow it slowly but surely. I don't really have any major goals like, well, I want to get to a certain amount of subscribers or anything. I'm just appreciate any subscriber that I do get. And yeah, hopefully this will be a great year. There'll be a lot of great movies coming out, and I'm going to be right here talking about them. So I just want to say that. I also want to say at the beginning, go ahead and give me a like and comment. That is very much appreciated. Also subscribe if you are watching this for the first time. I appreciate that as well. Just continuing to grow this channel. Just started a few months ago. Just love talking about movies and TV shows, and yeah, it's just a passion of mine, and so I'm going to continue to grow this out. But yeah, I appreciate any support I do get. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into this movie review. Today I am reviewing the movie Babylon, directed by Damien Chazelle, also written by Damien as well. This movie has a slew of cast members in this. You have Brad Pitt playing this long-time seasoned veteran actor and as a Jack Conrad. You also have Margot Robbie in here as Nellie Leroy, playing a up-and-coming actress in her own right. And also starring in this, you have Diego Calva. I believe that's how you say his name. He is playing Manny Torres. He is really the main character of this movie. If there is a main character, the movie does jump around at various times in this movie to different characters, but he is kind of the main character that we're following, who is hanging around Margot Robbie for a lot of this movie. He is sort of a young guy that is beginning to work in Hollywood. You're behind the scenes, learning the ins and outs of everything going on in the times. You also have a few cameos along the way. Olivia Wilde's at the very beginning of the movie. She's very entertaining in her brief little moment in the movie. It's very short-lived, but she's very entertaining. And you also have even Jean Smart in here as well. Babylon is a tale of outsized ambition and outrageous excess. It traces the rise and fall of multiple characters during an era of unbridled decadence and depravity in early Hollywood. And that description definitely very accurately sums it up. I will say my experience with this movie is very mixed. I think like a lot of people, in a lot of ways with this movie. I was actually late to seeing this movie. I had been sick, and then the holidays was going on, and there's a bunch of stuff going on. I didn't get to see this movie right away. So I'd already heard the initial reviews by people who had seen the movie, and I had heard some people say it's just completely just debauchery filled and outrageous and just not really a good movie at all. And I had seen and heard some people that love the movie, and I will say this movie is wild. Without spoiling anything, within the first few minutes of this movie, there's immediately a bunch of debauchery going on, a bunch of wild, disgusting, honestly, imagery, a lot of shocking, just very party-filled themes going on. I'd say the first 20 minutes of this movie is literally, at least for me, it felt like was just focused on this one party that's going on in Hollywood. I believe it's in Bel Air. This movie really spans about a decade of time. The movie starts in the mid-20s in Hollywood and really showing the silent film era and how crazy that was, and not just in filming the actual movies, but everything going on behind the scenes. Of course, the debauchery, as mentioned, which is really the best way to describe a lot of what goes on in this movie, whether it's sexual stuff, whether it's just drug use, rampant drug use, people just doing crazy ass shit. The way this movie displayed the filmmaking process in general in the times was really interesting to me. It was a sight to behold, I will say. And yeah, just as soon as this movie starts, you're just kind of thrown into this environment that Damien Chazelle is putting you in. He's just it's like he's transporting you to this time, and just like the extreme version of everything that was going on. It definitely does seem heightened to what probably did happen. I'm not saying that, obviously a lot of this stuff did really happen, and I think that's the intrigue behind it, especially during the Roaring Twenties, all the stories I do think it was, it's a sight to behold, but there is a level of it where you're like, okay, this is a movie, and this is definitely very extreme right now, just a lot of the stuff that was being presented, especially near the beginning of the movie, but as I said, that first 20 minutes where you're just in this wild party, it really, the best way I could describe the scenario, that scene, the sequence of events, it was basically like The Great Gatsby and The Wolf of Wall Street combined. The parties that Jay Gatsby would have, of course, I'm talking specifically about the movie here, just in general. The parties that he would have, it's like as if those same parties were happening, but just extreme level. Just like, because, you know, in The Great Gatsby movie, the movie was rated PG-13, so there's only so much that it was still kind of modest in a way to what was really going on, especially during the Roaring Twenties. So this is kind of an extreme version of those parties, basically. And I'm not gonna lie, I was very on the fence with this movie during this sequence of events. You know, the movie was just getting started. There was really no feel to what the actual plot or what's gonna be really taking place here in this movie. What line am I gonna be able to follow in this movie that's gonna be a through line to me staying connected to the overall story and wanting to continue to follow these characters. You're introduced to a lot of characters from the beginning. Brad Pitt's character arrives at the party. He was really great, I think, throughout this movie. And I think really in the end, that's where a lot of my best moments with this movie were. A lot of the moments that resonated best with me was a lot of the moments with certain characters. I really love certain characters' journeys in this movie. I think overall, my thoughts on just the movie as a whole, I'm still very mixed on. I connected with some of it I didn't. I felt kind of very disconnected, and the movie is very long. You know, you are going to hear that it's over 3 hours long, and I think this movie definitely could have benefited from a shorter runtime. I just think with everything going on and all the characters that are involved, all the characters that you're getting used to, introduced to, it all could have, I think, benefited just from being cut down a little bit. There was just many moments in this movie where I was watching it and mostly enjoying myself. There wasn't really many times where I could blatantly look and say, I'm just not having a good time right now, but there was plenty of moments where I was watching and saying, this is an enjoyable moment, and I can see what he's going for. But, you know, with Damien Chazelle having written and directed this movie, I don't know, maybe it just would have helped if he had more voices in the room, kind of reining him back a little bit. There's just some moments where it's like there's a lot going on, and this is just, it's too much at times. Like, it's just overwhelming, and you get that's kind of the vibe that he's going for in this movie, but I thought it was a little off-putting at times. And, you know, I feel like we could have just went a little slower at times, just especially with some of the events going on with certain characters. But as I said, some of the characters' journeys, I think a few of the characters' journeys are really what I like the most about this movie. Brad Pitt, as I already mentioned, his character Jack Conrad, I really enjoyed the journey going with this character, because you really start the movie and he's this seasoned actor, you know, this veteran actor who's already done, like, you know, dozens of movies. He's a star in Hollywood, and it really in the silent film era. And what this movie does, it goes really from, as I said, the mid-20s to about, I'd say, early to mid-30s. And it really shows the transition in Hollywood from silent film to sound being in film. And you see Brad Pitt's character struggle with the transition and really start to have, you know, that kind of storyline that's very familiar, I will say. And even though it is familiar, it didn't feel tired to me, because I think I really like Brad Pitt, the way he was portraying his character Jack. You started to feel the torment, and as the movie went on, you could really sense the fact that he was this big movie star, but yet he was not happy with what he was doing. Like, I got this real sense as the movie was going on and on. He's kind of a miserable guy. I mean, he never really had true love growing up, except from his producer, who ends up really being the main guy who's hanging around the most part. His producer was the one who said he had talent when he was young, and that really set him on the course to be the actor that he is. And as the movie goes on, without spoiling anything, the end of his journey, I thought was really beautifully tragic, I guess, in what happens with his character. And I thought Brad Pitt really had some nuance in the character. It wasn't just, in the first half of the movie, you're just like, okay, it's just this actor dude who's, you know, a famous guy, and he's been in a lot of movies, and he's just kind of fallen from grace. But there's a little more nuance there, and I really like the way that he portrayed this character. You have Margot Robbie in here, also playing Nellie Leroy. This up-and-coming actress, young actress that's in Hollywood, and doesn't have the same storyline as, like, say, a movie like Blonde with Marilyn Monroe and her story, which is pretty crazy. It's even earlier on, so you'd think she'd get it even worse, but I guess they just don't necessarily go in that route in this movie. They don't really have any moments where she got really abused or taken advantage of too hard in Hollywood, but her character overall, I was very mixed on. I think there's at times where I really enjoyed her character. There were times where I was, fully on board with her journey and everything she has to go through in this movie to become this young actress. And there's a really great sequence with her when she really first gets discovered by a director of sorts, I guess you'll say, director producer, and where she has this moment where she has to cry on command multiple different ways in this scene. And there's times where like the director's being like, you have to cry this way, you got to hold the tear in here and then let it go here. And Margot Robbie really has a great, just a great moment. Her character Nellie, I really enjoyed that moment in particular. But I think just overall, every time I got really on board and like was rooting for her character, it's just the nature of the character. She has this self-sabotage personality, and it just is frustrating as an audience member. Like, it's nothing that Margot Robbie did wrong. She did really good in this movie. It's just her character in particular, and the character that Diego Calva plays, who is playing Manny Torres. They are kind of really running around together throughout this movie. And I really enjoyed the journey that they both went on. I think Diego Calva did a really good job in this movie, being really the main lead in this movie, I would say. Him, Margot Robbie, and Brad Pitt are the actors that are involved the most in this movie. I really enjoyed watching everything that Manny and Nellie, everything that happened between them, but it was just so frustrating because it was that classic story where Manny meets Nellie early on. He's already got it in Hollywood, working for this producer, not really in the movie business at first, but then he gets involved with it. He ends up actually becoming almost like a studio executive, like almost to that level. But he keeps, unfortunately, being involved with Nellie and shouldering a lot of the responsibility of Nellie's actions. And Nellie ends up fucking up in a lot of ways. She does a lot of drugs. She didn't grow up in a good household. Growing up, so in a lot of ways, she's really, to me, I perceived it as damaged goods. As fucked up as that is, because I don't necessarily think you should ever think about anybody in that way, but it's just frustrating as an audience member watching this movie because Diego Calva ends up putting his job in jeopardy to help her out throughout this movie, and it just kind of ends up going that way, a downward spiral for both of their characters. And while it was entertaining and fun at times, it was kind of annoying, honestly, watching that whole storyline go down and take place. And as I said, there's some cameos throughout. I mentioned Olivia Wilde. She is at the very beginning of the movie, and she is one of Brad Pitt's wives. He has a multitude of wives in this movie. She did a great job in her little cameo, but also you have Tobey Maguire in more of an extended cameo in this movie. I mean, he really comes and is in a significant chunk of this movie. I'd say even for the 3 hours that it is. He's this kind of, I don't even know, not a studio executive, but he's this kind of big wig guy in Hollywood who's involved in a little bit of the underworld type activities that go on with drugs and criminal activity and whatnot. And it was a very interesting character. I really did like seeing him in this movie. But I do think overall, and I thought about it since I've seen the movie, I don't think Tobey Maguire's part really worked for me as much as I would have liked it to have worked for me. I understand the sequence of events that takes place that he's involved in. I understand why it happened and how it pertains to the plot and everything, but honestly, overall, it didn't connect with me as much as I would have liked it to. There really isn't too much of a deep dive on it. I had hoped to have liked it better. But as I said, I mean, the runtime really, I think, could have been cut down here. I think it would have been tighter and a more enjoyable experience overall. I think the main really criticisms I have with this movie is there would be sequences that happen where I just felt like, as I said, I thought Damien Chazelle just had a lot going on in this movie, and there's times where it just becomes too overwhelming, and I think there's a lot of ideas being thrown at you. And there's beautiful moments in this movie, but there will be moments where it's just like, this is great, I enjoy the vision, but maybe we could have cut down here. But like I said, there's beautiful moments in this. There's a moment at the end of this movie that I really wanted to point out with Diego Calva, his main character Manny, and he, without any major spoilers or anything, he is at a point in this movie where he's come back to Hollywood. He's just sits down in the theater randomly in Hollywood, the Hollywood area, and he's watching this movie. And I don't remember exactly which movie it is. I might put it up in here. I think it might have been Singing in the Rain. I believe, I'm not sure. But he's watching this movie, and they have this really beautiful montage in this moment. And all of a sudden, you see all of his memories of being on movie sets throughout what we've already seen in the movie. But then you see like the future of film. and it was just so well done. And honestly, I will say very James Cameron biased. I believe I saw a Terminator in there and Avatar as well in the montage, but they go through this montage that was so beautiful. If you're a movie fan, I just feel like it would touch you just seeing it in the theater. It touched me, like just you see him start to cry as it's like he sees the future of film taking place, and it's like in that moment he realized that he was a part of the beginning of film really taking off and going to all these great places where obviously we have all these wonderful historically great movies now. And I just thought it was a very beautiful moment in the movie. And there's a lot of beautiful moments like that in the movie that take place. That, along with some of the storylines in particular, my favorite characters, as I kind of already mentioned, Brad Pitt, and also a character I have not mentioned yet, which I really loved, his limited journey in this movie. They don't focus on him a lot, but Jovan Adepo, I believe that's how you say his name. I'm not sure if that's correct. Sorry if I butchered your name. He plays a character called Sidney Palmer. He is an African American, and he is a trumpet player, I believe. And you see his journey as this movie goes on is he starts to get involved with film, and he's in movies where he's playing music, and they really show, obviously a lot of the racial sides, as to kind of the difficulties and different obstacles he had to maneuver to still be involved in film, being the African American that he was. And they kind of go into that briefly. I feel like they could have delved deeper into his story, but they delved deep enough into it where I really enjoyed the journey we went on with this character. There's even this one moment in this movie that really, I think, resonated pretty well with me in terms of just the theme of what was going on. You had Sidney was involved in this movie or TV show or of some sorts, and he actually had to put I think charcoal on his face or something like that. He had to put more black on his face, even though he was already an African American guy, and because they thought with the lighting he wouldn't look black enough. And because of I guess the South was really starting to get into black people being in movies, and it's all this fucked up like cultural appropriation, racist, like just horrible shit that would happen. And you just see like the performance here by the actor. Again, I probably butchered his name, but he was so good in this scene of just like, without saying much, he just has a long moment where he's putting it on his face, and then he performs in the scene or whatever it is. And I thought it was just a really moving moment. And him and Brad Pitt were my two favorite characters in this movie. Although, like I said, I really did enjoy Manny and Nelly, Margot Robbie and Diego Calva, but I just felt like overall I didn't necessarily enjoy their characters' journeys as much. There is a lot of other people involved in this movie. You have Flea making an appearance, and a couple other people I've seen in like comedy movies and various other stuff. It was a very well put together cast here. I thought the way they did show kind of the journey of the transition from silent film to sound being in movies, I thought was really cool, really well done. But overall, I do think the movie was a little long. And I do think that there's a lot of ideas going on here that could have been cut down just a little bit, just tempered a little bit, just the overabundance of ideas. I guess you would say it could have been just tempered just a little bit. And that's my main criticism with this movie. But honestly, with it being so overwhelming, I actually expected to like this movie a little bit less than I did. It's pretty much just as overwhelming as people have been describing it. And I think there is times where the debauchery and the grossness, the imagery, the shocking stuff can be a little much, but actually, as I said, I thought it was actually going to be worse. To be honest, it was actually, in the end, the main things I remember is the story elements and not the shock and awe imagery and just content going on in this movie. But that is my main thoughts. I would overall recommend this movie. I think if you love film in any way, this would be a movie to check out. It's going to definitely hit everyone very different, but I think I would recommend just at least checking it out, seeing how far you can get into it, because it is over 3 hours. And I will say, if you've already seen on this channel, Not Your Average Josh, I do have the Avatar review up here, the latest Avatar movie. And that movie was over 3 hours, but it flowed a lot better. Just more of a seamless flow to the runtime in that movie. That's my overall thoughts. I will give Babylon a 7 out of 10. A few little problems here and there, but overall it was still an enjoyable experience, and I do look forward to, at some point, probably checking it out again when it comes out. when it comes out on streaming, on whatever streaming it'll come out on. So, but that'll be it for now. Again, I do want to say Happy New Year to anybody who's watching this. If you happen to be anyone, again, I am just a small startup little channel on YouTube. If you happen to be anyone that is actually watching my videos loyally at all, I appreciate that so much. Like, seriously, I'm just doing this for fun. I love talking about movies. I love watching shows about people talking about movies and TV shows, all different things of that sort. So I appreciate any support I do get. You can support this channel by liking, commenting. You can also subscribe to this channel if this is your first time watching one of my videos. I do appreciate that so much. You can also, I didn't mention this at the beginning, but you can add me on Snapchat. You can follow me on TikTok, where I will post content similar to this, but for the most part, my content will be here on this YouTube, Not Your Average Josh. You can subscribe to that now if you want to. I appreciate that very much. That'll be it for now, and I will talk to you guys later.